He's thinking to himself that taking these pure devotees with me, I shall descend and sport in various wonderful ways unknown, even in Vaikuntha. I shall broadcast such pastimes by which even I am amazed. Now is the season of Rath Yatra, and they're performing Rath Yatra. And we know from his similar description in the Madhya Lila of the Rath Yatra at Puri, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has described that even Lord Jagannath stands sometimes with unblinking eyes, astonished by the dancing and the expressions of love manifested by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his pure devotees. So that's what he's hinting at here. And he goes on to say the influence of Yoga Maya will inspire the gopis with sentiment that I am their paramour. Neither the gopis nor I shall notice this, for our minds will always be entranced by one another's beauty and qualities. Pure attachment will unite us even at the expense of moral and religious duties. Destiny will sometimes bring us together and sometimes separate us. I shall taste the essence of all these rasas, and in this way I shall favor all the devotees. Then, by hearing about the pure love of the residents of Vraja, devotees will worship me on the path of spontaneous love, abandoning all rituals of religiosity and fruitive activity. So, these are some of the things that the Lord has been thinking. So, in this way, assuming the sentiments of a devotee, he preached pure devotional service while practicing it himself. That brings us to today's couplet. Dasya Sakya Vatsalyara Jai Shringara Chari Prema Chaturvidha Bhakti Adhar. Four kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the four kinds of mellows in love of God, namely servitude, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. Nija nija bhava shabe shreshta korimane nija bhave kare Krishna sukha ashwadane. Each kind of devotee feels that his sentiment is the most excellent, and thus in that mood he tastes great happiness with Lord Krishna. Those who are twice initiated, they know that when we're meditating on our spiritual master, we are meditating on Krishnananda, the bliss of Lord Krishna that the spiritual master experiences. That's what he's talking about here. So, Tatastha Hayya Mane Bichara Jadi Kari Shabarasha Haite Shringarya Adhika Madhuri. But you knew there was a Parantu coming. He says, if we compare the sentiments in an impartial mood, we find that the conjugal sentiment is superior to all others in sweetness. There's a purport here, finally, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. How fortunate we are to have Srila Prabhupada's purports. Without Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports, there is no way we would ever be able to understand the transcendental significance of all the things that we're hearing. So Srila Prabhupada writes, no one is higher or lower than anyone else in the transcendental relationships with the Lord. For in the absolute realm, everything is equal. But although these relationships are absolute, there are also transcendental differences between them. Thus, the transcendental relationship of conjugal love is considered the highest perfection. I can't restrain myself. I just have to go on to the next verse because he's quoting here from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Yathottaramasau swada visheshollasamayyapi ratir vasanaya swadvi bhasate kapi kasyachita. Increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another. But that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession of desire manifests itself in the form of conjugal love. I'm going to read that again. Increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another. But that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession of desire manifests itself in the form of conjugal love. There's a short purport. Srila Prabhupada simply writes, this is a verse from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's the second or the southern ocean, fifth wave, and text number 38. Then he comes to his conclusion. Ataiva madhura rasa kahitaranam shakya parekya bhave dvividha samsthan. Therefore, I call it madhurya rasa, madhura rasa. It has two further divisions, namely wedded and unwedded love. That is to say, Swakya rasa and Parakya rasa. Swakya rasa is, of course, married, conjugal happiness, connubial bliss, we can say. And that's exhibited by the queens in Dvaraka, that's exhibited by the Lakshmis in Vaikuntha also, Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrahma Sevyamanam, etc. So that's Swakya rasa. And in this world, that's the idea of love, the ideal, I should say. Parakya love is a special thing, special creation of the Lord in his Braj Lila, because in that Parakya bhava in which the Lord and his most beloved associates are not married, that ecstasy is much higher. It's impossible for us to understand that in this world because here our only frame of reference for such love is illicit. And of course, that's the difference between iron and gold. That's something he says here in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in fact, that the distinction between mundane lust and Krishna prema is so vast. They're antithetical, actually, we can say that. So it's important to keep that in mind here. Then he says, Parakya bhavayati rasherullas brajabina ihar anyatra nahi bash. There is a great increase of mellow in the unwedded conjugal mood. Such love is found nowhere but in Vraja. So it's not found in this world. It's not found even in Vaikuntha world, not even in Dwarka, not even in Mathura, except maybe in the case of Kubja, but I doubt it. So, Vrajavathu Ganer e bhav niravati tara madhye Shri Radhai bhaveravati. This mood is unbounded in the damsels of Vraja, but among them it finds its perfection in Shri Radha. That's why on every wall in Vrindavan, at least you used to be able to see the name of Shri Radha. Still you can see, but there's a lot of competition now. There's politicians' names. Of course, there's Dr. Sheikh. Everybody knows. It's practically every wall. And, Lay's potato chips and Airtel and everything. So, but should be so that the name of Radharani is glorified above all others. Praudha nirmala bhava prema sarvottama Krishna madhurya rasa sadhakarana. Her pure, mature love surpasses that of all others. Her love is the cause of Lord Krishna's tasting the sweetness of the conjugal relationship. All right, I'm not going to conclude that idea because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami will do so on his own in a few verses, but we have enough to discuss here. So we started out with this idea that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually Krishna himself. What are we talking about in this passage? If we've been paying attention, we know. The Chaitanya Charitamrita begins in some 17 verses, Sanskrit verses of Mangalacharana. And having gone through the first verse, which deals with the spiritual masters, and up to the fourth verse, which is another famous one, where he starts to hint at what the topic of this chapter is, chapter 4 of the Adi Lila. Anarpita chirim chirat puraneavatirna kalau samarpayata mannato jalarasam sabhakti shriyam Hari purata sundara dyutigadam basandipitaha sada hridaya kandare spurava shachinandanaha. That's verse number 4 of the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita. How does Srila Prabhupada translates it? He says, May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Shachi Devi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. It's interesting because although this is what is stated in the text, verse number 4 of the Adi Lila, chapter 1, now when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is actually explaining that verse, he seems to categorize this idea as the external or the extrinsic reasons for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appearing. And he says that the really confidential thing comes in the next verse. What is the next verse? Text 5. Radha Krishna Pranaya Varktir Dharini Shaktirasmat Ekatmanav Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Bhedam Gatao Tao Chaitanyakhim Prakatamadhana Yadvayam Chaikimaptam Radha Bhava Duti Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, we see this sometimes pictured. It was actually Srila Prabhupada's one of his favorite pictures. Radha on one side, Krishna on the other side, but thoroughly intertwined, anga anga. So, ek prana do deha, they say. This is what we're talking about here. Although they are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Why did they separate themselves eternally? For pastimes. If you erase the distinction between lover and beloved, then there's no exchange of love. So for the exchange of rasa or pastimes, they have separated themselves eternally. Now, these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya. That is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I bow down to him who has manifested himself, he's Krishna himself, with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani. Although he is Krishna himself, he has manifested himself with the sentiment and the complexion of Radharani, and that's why he's called Gaura Hari. Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Surupam. So this is the verse that we're explaining here in this fourth chapter of the Adi Lila, and now especially Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has just really been warming up, but within, say, 15 verses or so, he's going to quote this verse again in full, and 10 verses, 12 verses, I think. So he'll explain a little bit more in detail. All this is just introductory matter. So he's reminding us, back in text 42, Dasya Sakhya Vatsalya Araje Shringar Chari Prema Chaturvidha Bhakti Adhara. 4 kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the 4 kinds of mellows in love of God, namely servitude, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. Now, this is something that we see is the distinct character of Srila Prabhupada's presentation of Krishna consciousness. If you study Srila Prabhupada's books very carefully, you will appreciate very deeply that Srila Prabhupada has nourished each and every one of these rasas. Do his books nourish the Dasya Bhava? Yes, they certainly do. Sakya Bhava? Yes, it is there. Vatsalya Bhava? Indeed, it is there. And of course, Madhurya Rasa. So Srila Prabhupada, it's many times said, has built a house in which the whole world can live in many more ways than just one, spiritually and materially. He has accomplished that. So Srila Prabhupada always was careful to not focus too much on the Madhurya Rasa, although the emphasis is definitely there as per our party policy. But Srila Prabhupada is also interested in expanding everyone's Krishna consciousness. That was his Catholic outlook on Krishna consciousness. So Nija Nija Bhava Shabe Shreshta Korimani, Nija Bhave Kore Krishna Sukha Aswadane. Each kind of devotee feels that his sentiment is the most excellent, and thus in that mood he tastes great happiness with Lord Krishna. Now, we can appreciate that of the many different kinds of devotees that the Lord has, there are degrees in intensity of their loving attachment. That's a fact. And despite the fact that Krishna is reciprocating with all of them and loves all of them equally, as Prabhupada has emphasized in his purports here, what does he write in the text 44 purport? No one is higher or lower than anyone else in transcendental relationships with the Lord, for in the absolute realm, everything is equal. Now, we have to understand that everything is equal doesn't mean diversity, equity, and inclusion. It means that everyone is equally spiritual, but it doesn't mean that every spiritual entity or reciprocation is of the same intensity. It doesn't mean that. Anyone will admit that Madhurya Rasa is the supreme manifestation of the most intense kind of loving attachment. Whether you're in the material world where we only experience the perverted reflection, I should say, of what we call Adi Rasa, the original rasa for that reason. Or we're actually in the spiritual world and we get a glimpse of the glory and self-sacrifice that is at the heart or the root of this Madhurya Rasa that we're discussing tonight. The fact is that it is the most intense. It is the most intense attachment that can be. Still, everyone has his own particular attachment. Swe adhikare yanishta sa guna parikirtara. And it should be so. Everyone has his own position in pure devotional service, his own eternal, constitutional position, his rasa, we can say. He has his own rasa. And we have our body which matches that rasa, our body which is not different from that rasa. In this material world, we have to emphasize, unfortunately, that we are not these material bodies, but in the spiritual world, that is impossible and certainly undesirable. You have to emphasize that you are the body in the spiritual world, because that is the fact of the matter. Yad bhava bhavata tyamanujasta samprapya rupa mahimasanayana bhusha ityadi. Everybody has their own bhava. And, Brahma Samhita has stated it very nicely. Yam krodha kama sahaja pranayadi bhiti vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevya bhavai sanchintestasya sadrishim tanam apur ete govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. So everybody has their particular attachment, whether it be what does he say? Yam krodha kama sahaja pranayadi bhiti. Krodha, ya kama. It's interesting because here Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is talking about two kinds of Madhurya Rasa. Those who are listening, they know we are talking about Swakiya Rasa and Parakiya Rasa. But there's also two kinds of madhurya rasa in terms of what he calls kamanuga and sambandhanuga. Kamanuga means those devotees who are only relating to Lord Krishna on the basis of their transcendental desire or attachment for him. And it's significant that Prabhupada has also said that the intensity of a devotee's transcendental attachment for Krishna is manifested on the platform of desire here in this same passage. So Kamanuga Bhakti means it's not bounded by any such formality as relationship, formal relationship, or familial relationship, especially. Because we know there are another pair of gopis, we can say. There's the younger gopis who tend to be in this category, Parakya Bhav. And then there's the older gopis, they're also not Swakya Bhav, they're also Parakya Bhava, but they're older. And then there are the Vatsalya devotees, gopis are also there. They're older devotees. They have this relationship with Krishna. So Mother Yashoda, she's his mother. Of course, we're not talking about Madhurya Rasa anymore. So Mother Yashoda is there and the others, even Balaram and his friends in Sakyabhava, they have relationship to Lord Krishna. So the relationship is there also in any of these rasas. But in Sambandhanuga Bhakti, Madhurya Bhakti, it's on the basis of some formal or familial relationship, and on Parakya Bhava or in Kamanuga Bhakti, it's transcendental to that. Anyway, we need not go into that detail. But Krodha, one may be angry. Kama, one may have strong desire for the Lord. Sahaja, pranaya, natural love. Bhiti, fear even. Or reverence, we can say, awe and reverence, as we say, Aishwarya Bhava. Vatsalya, parental love. Moha, illusion, they're all an illusion. It's a transcendental kind of illusion. Illusion, just like bodily misidentification in this world is a bad thing, but bodily identification in the spiritual world is a good thing. So in the same way, moha in this world is something that we should be beyond. Nirmana, moha, jitasanga dosha, ityadi. Krishna says you should be beyond pride, bewilderment, the stupidity, mudha, etc. in this material world. But in the spiritual world, they're completely under the sway of moha that is impelled by yoga maya. Special category of the Lord's illusory energy. Strictly speaking, we can say it's not really illusory energy, but from their perspective, it's an illusion. That's the glory. It's an illusion that isn't an illusion. So Vatsalya Moha, Guru Gaurava, this is Dasya Bhava. The servants have great respect. And Sevya Bhava, they have a service attitude. Sanchintya tasya sadrishin tanam apur. The Lord will give you a corresponding body, a body that corresponds to that mood. This is the point that we're stressing. Sanchintya. As we reflect, as we meditate in this life, tasya sadrishim tanam, in exactly corresponding to your reflection, to your absorption in Krishna consciousness, your spiritual body, siddha deha, it exactly matches it said, tasya sadrishim. Ete, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So this is what we're talking about here in texts 42 and 43. Now, in text 44, finally we come to the real point that no one is higher or lower. They're all equally, in the sense that they're all equally surrendered, they're all equally in love, they're all equally spiritual, but their identities and their functions and the nature of their love, those are all different, all different. So this is achintya bheda abheda tattva. Not very easy to understand. Just like a person who is a prostitute in this mature world does not therefore necessarily understand anything about Parakya Bhava. It is impossible. In fact, she's probably the last one to understand anything about it. So, in the same way, this is not so easy to understand these transcendental relationships and the transcendental disequality. I hate to say that because it's a bad word in modern society. All right, so although these relationships are absolute, there are transcendental differences between them. This is the point. And the transcendental relationship of conjugal love is considered the highest perfection. So to substantiate that point, he's quoting from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Yatottaramasau swada visheshollasamai api ratir vasanaya swadvi pasate kapi kasyachit. Increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another, but that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession of desire, the basis of gradation in the spiritual world, taratamya, we can say, hierarchy, is intensity of your desire. How strong is your desire? As we were saying about this with relation to Kamanuga Bhakti. Kama is not a good thing in this material world, but kama in the spiritual world, that is the ticket that gets you into Goloka Vrindavan, if in fact it is pure. The first thing is that it has to be pure. So, first thing we have to understand, don't be a demon. Don't engage in sinful activities. Be a civilized human being. That's called dharma, apapa vidham. And then once you become a bona fide human being, then you can begin to enter into the realm of bhakti, but that bhakti does not end in Aishwarya Bhava. Everybody in the whole world, even the demons, understand that to some degree. Even the followers of any other faith, Abrahamic faiths and others, they get this conception of awe and reverence. Dasya Bhav, the Lord is great and I'm small. That's generic bhakti. That's entry-level bhakti, a very pedestrian level of bhakti. When our devotional sentiment becomes more purified, elevated, refined, then we can begin to consider some rasas even higher than Dasya Bhava. But Dasya Bhava is entry level. That's the beginning of bhakti. So Krishna, as we said, he has his friends, he has his parents, he has his lovers especially, being emphasized here. But the most intense of all the relationships is conjugal rasa. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach. Ataiva madhur rasa kahitar nam swakiya parakiya bhave dvividha samsthan. Two kinds. Parakiya bhave ati rasher ullas. Brajabina ihar anyatra nahi bash. It doesn't exist in this material world outside of Raja. Technically speaking, Vrajadham is not within this world. So really we can even say it doesn't exist in this world at all. But that is the highest manifestation. And strangely enough, it's not Swakiya Bhav among the Madhurya Rasasvadikas. It is not Swakiya Bhava that is the most idealized. It is Parakiya Bhav, illicit love of the gopis. Vrajavadhu Ganer, e bhava niravadhi. There's no limit to their love. Taramodhe Shri Radhai Bhaver Avadhi. If there is a limit, the limit is called Srimati Radharani. So, this is also we find in the Brahma Samhita that, what is that verse? Srimati Radharani is mentioned. Well, she and all her friends are mentioned. That Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Rati Bhavitabhistabhirya Even Nija Rupata Yagalabhi Goloka Eva Nivasati. Not here in, where are we? New Jersey or wherever we are, Texas, New York, Los Angeles, Florida, Arizona. Not there. Goloka Eva Nivasati. It's only in Goloka. Akhilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord residing in his own realm, Goloka, Goloka, cow world, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency, possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. We've heard in the first verse of Lord Brahma's prayers, Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambhrama Sevyamanam. They're all running around engaged in seva, kind of like an ISKCON temple. So many gopis, Lakshmi expansions, or at least those who were blessed by Lakshmi, or rather Jayashri, Srimati Radharani. And they're running around engaging in so many services. This is what they do in the spiritual world. But they are all embodiments or extensions of the bodily form of Srimati Radharani. They're permeated and they're vitalized by Lord's ever blissful spiritual rasa, this exchange of Madhurya rasa. That's the essence. And they exhibit what kinds of activities? 64 artistic activities. That's described in the purport by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We need not zoom in on that just now. But this is Radharani. She resembles his own spiritual figure. She actually resembles him in the sense that she's spiritual. In that sense, all she's equal to him. We were talking about equality earlier. They're all equal. They're all spiritual. But within spirituality, there is distinction also. This is the important thing. This is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has to come into this world. This is why Krishna is so fascinated by the love of Srimati Radharani. He wants to try to understand that because he cannot do so. Just as Lakshmi Devi cannot get into the Rasa Lila because it's beyond her capacity. It is beyond what she is. It's beyond her own ontology, we can say. So in the same way, it's beyond Krishna to understand what is his own feminine counterpart in the form of Srimati Radharani. For that, he tries to embody her color and her sentiment, and to try to relish something of it. It's an eternal fascination between Radharani and Krishna, incomprehensible to those of us whose only absorption in this world is mundane lust. But the love affair between Srimati Radharani and Krishna is so deep that it's glorified in all these passages that we're reading. And anyway, you can read the purport to, this is text of 5.37 of the Brahma Samhita. Purport is given there by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And the rest of this chapter also explains very nicely what is the Lord feeling? Why is he so fascinated with Srimati Radharani that his own purpose to fulfill in coming as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to experience that rasa that she tastes, as if he could. Of course, he can. He can do anything. But to be the supreme male manifestation is a different thing eternally from being the supreme female manifestation. This is the great glory and wonder of Maya, any Maya. We're talking about Yoga Maya here, but these things are above my head, so maybe I should quit while I'm ahead. But therefore, Lord Gauranga, who is Sri Hari himself, accepted the sentiments of Radha and thus fulfilled his own desires. Ataiva she bhava angikara kori Shithelena Nija Vancha Gauranga Sri Hari. This is how he concludes. Srimati Radharani's mature love surpasses that of all others. Her love is the cause of Lord Krishna's tasting the sweetness of the conjugal relationship. Without Srimati Radharani, there's no happiness for the Lord. People sometimes they worship Krishna without worshiping Srimati Radharani, but it's impossible. In fact, it's impossible. The very process of Aradhana includes her name because it has to. The only thing that can give pleasure to Sri Hari is Radha. So, and here it's stated, Shithidena Nijavancha Gauranga Sri Hari Ataiva She Bhava Angikara Kari. So, Rasasvadana Karana. Krishna Madhurya Rasasvadana Karana. She is the very cause of Lord Krishna's ability to taste the sweetness of the conjugal relationship. He'll not be happy without Srimati Radharani. So as we said earlier, Ek Prando Deha, the transcendental mellow relished by the gopis in Vraj is super excellently featured in Srimati Radharani. Mature assimilation of the transcendental humor of conjugal love is represented by Srimati Radharani, whose feelings are incomprehensible even to Lord Krishna himself. The intensity of her loving service is the highest form of ecstasy. No one can surpass Srimati Radharani in relishing the qualities of the Lord through this supreme transcendental mellow. Therefore, the Lord himself agreed to assume the position of Radharani in the form of the Lord Sri Gauranga. He then relished the highest position of Parakya Rasa as exhibited in the transcendental abode of Vraja. These are some of Prabhupada's purport to text 50 of Adi Lila chapter 4. And I'm going to stop there, but if anyone has any questions or any comments, maybe we can discuss a little bit of this very deep things. One more thing I should say is that we have in ISKCON, we have a class of devotee who thinks that, well, you're only worshiping Vishnu, as if that's something that they're too high to understand or appreciate. You're only worshiping Lakshmi Narayan. That is absolutely improper according to Srila Prabhupada. If you don't believe me, you should read his books. You'll find out. But the point is that although there is transcendental distinction, we're not the ones who are capable of making that distinction. And that we have to be honest enough to accept. And many times we aren't. There's another class of devotees sometimes who feel that we're not concerned with, or we need not even pay much attention to the love that is manifested by the Lord's parents, or by his friends, or by his servants, because we've been given this gift by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of Madhurya Rasa. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was given that gift does not mean that we have embraced that gift, or that we truly understand it. So, and as I said, anybody who reads Prabhupada's books knows this, but most of the people who say this are not the people who are reading his books. They read books by Narayan Maharaj. They read books by other authors who you'll find in Loi Bajar. And they believe that Loi Bajar is the better place to find Krishna than in the lotus feet of the spiritual master. So this is a warning. And Prabhupada also is, in a few verses, he's going to reiterate this. I mean, throughout this chapter, he's given so many warnings. In other words, we should not become prakrita sahajya. Sahajya means somebody who thinks that devotional service is a very casual affair, or that it's just natural, it's already there, that we don't have to do anything really to develop it. You do have to work hard to develop real devotional service, pure devotional service. And prakrita, because that level of conviction and devotional service, it is okay because it engages one, at least to some degree, in devotional service, but it is prakrita, means it's mundane devotees. Prakrita sahajya. Prakrita, just like prakrita bhakta is also called kanishta adhikari. He doesn't really have a very clear understanding or comprehensive understanding of what Prabhupada's books teach, because again, he doesn't read them. But it's very important to understand the distinction between the Kanishta Adhikari and the real devotee. Or another way of saying it is between the Sahajya, Prakriti Sahajya, and the real devotees. Kanishtas are prime suspects, prime candidates for falling into the trap of Sahajya mentality because they don't have knowledge. The kind of knowledge that Prabhupada stayed up all night, every night, sharing with us. They don't have it because they don't hear it. And that's their choice, which is unfortunate. But anyway, we're talking about Srimati Radharani's pure, unrivaled love. And hopefully someday, by engaging in pure devotional service, we can come to actually understand something of these things. Really? I mean, not just theoretically, but according to our realization and surrender. All right. Does anybody have any questions or any comments?
Yes, 2 questions are there.
Okay, there's 2 questions here. Let's see who it is. And click on the little hands there. No.
Murari Prem
Okay,
Prabhu,
got it. Yeah,
Kavita
Murari Prema Das, Amritananda Das, and Kavita Ramachandran. Okay, let's start with Amritananda Das, RNS, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my
Hare
full
Krishna.
obeisance, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for a
Namaste.
wonderful class as always, Prabhu. My question is regarding this. You spoke about the love of Krishna and Radharani. It's so esoteric. And yes, Prabhupada has given it to us in Chaitanya Charitamrita and so many of his other books. My question, Prabhu, is that I think like we are not even toddlers on this path of bhakti. And we are
Embryos.
huh?
We're not even born yet, half of us.
We are not even born yet. And like we are midgets, and this is a giant. So even if we are not going into Loy Bazaar or looking at this book or that book, um, even if we are listening to lectures of Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara and doing all whatever is the recommended process, there is still this risk, Prabhu, because we are still not developed intellectually. Forget about spiritually. Then how do we even begin to understand this esoteric topic of love, pure love? What
Charya
should a
Vaishnava
sadhaka
ke
do?
ba, Charya Vaishnava seva pai se nishtar ke ba. Unless you stay tight with a pure devotee and serve his lotus feet unconditionally, practically speaking, it's not possible. With all the emphasis that I generally give in all my lectures to Srila Prabhupada's books and the need to memorize the data within those books, at least on a theoretical level. The fact of the matter is that Gyan alone is not going to help you. Ultimately, you have to surrender to a pure devotee. This is what we should be learning if we're reading Prahlad's prayers from the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, Matirna Krishne Paratasvato Vadyadi, those 2, 3 prayers are there. So, what that was his conclusion. The way to take shelter of Vrindavan is actually to surrender to a Vaishnava and become his sold out servant. Like an animal doesn't even worry about his own upkeep. He just does whatever the master wants. That's what it means to be a disciple. It means obedience. The Christian monks, I think it's the Cistercian order, when they take their vows of monkhood, they take 3 vows. What are they?
Poverty,
Obedience, chastity, and
poverty.
penance. Yeah, poverty. Yeah, correct. So, these are values that a disciple should really covet and try to cultivate also. Because although mercy is causeless, divine mercy is causeless, but the fact is that we see sometimes a person can do something that actually inspires mercy from a pure devotee. Sometimes he can, by demonstrating a devotional service, a pure devotee may become kindly disposed upon him. And when that happens, then we advance only. It's not just by accumulating data, or it's not just by, reading so many things and learning Sanskrit and all these other things. It's actually by humbly trying to surrender and render some unmotivated service unto the lotus feet of a pure devotee. That's at least one observation we can make about this. I hope it's helpful.
Mm. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
we're toddlers at the moment, maybe, but we're standing on the shoulders of giants. All of our charges have given us everything that we require. All we have to do is take it.
Mm.
That's the weak spot. We don't do that. We're ready to hear from Wall Street Journal and BBC and whatever, anything and everything, but how much are we really willing to hear from our own acharyas and become deeply absorbed in that? Not so much, I'm sorry to say. And we all have that problem. That's what we have to work on. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktehe. This is Rishabhadev tells us in Canto 5 also. Person has to take shelter of pure devotees. Okay?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Murari Prem Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the wonderful class. I was wondering if you could briefly expand upon Madhurya Ras as experienced by Sri Radharani's manjaris.
By Srimati Radharani's.
Her manjaris.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, but this is not my forte. I'm just not really that advanced. But Srimati Radharani, as I said, I pointed out in the direction of text 37 of Brahma Samhita, chapter 5. And, among those Sakhis or friends that she has, some of them are younger Sakhis, younger Manjaris who are serving the Sakhis. They're young girls. They're not really eligible for the service rendered by the Sakhis and by Srimati Radharani and her close friends, but they want to serve. They want to be part of it. They want to be in on it. And they're given mercy. It's the same principle that we're talking about even in this world when we talk about taking shelter of a Vaishnava. Charya Vaishnava Seva Paichi Nistar Keva. This is so, and the fact of the matter is that most of our Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas, they come from this category of manjaris and greatly exalted gopis, because that is the party line, so to speak. We can say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's main contribution in the sense that, his most intense experience and exhibition of pure love of Godhead was in this mood, very much so. So as far as tradition goes, that's what our Vaishnavas are teaching. What is that verse he says? Jaya Jaya Rasa Lila Sarvamanoram. Anyway, I forget now. Parakya Bhave Jaha Prajete Prachar. Coming from the six Goswamis is this Parakya Bhav, and within the Parakya Bhav subsection of Madhurya Rasa, we have this Sakhi Bhav, the friends of Srimati Radharani, and their servants are these little girls, Manjaris. So great souls. Rupa Manjari is one of them. That's Rupa Goswami. Rati Manjari, Sanatan Goswami. So many of them. Their identities have been given in books such as Radha Krishna, Gamnodesh Deepika, and also in the Ganodesh Deepika from Rupa Goswami and who is that? Kavi Karnapura, respectively. So these things you'll find there. Greater detail, these things are dilated there. That's about as far as I'm comfortable going on that topic. I hope
Okay,
that's
thank you. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Kavita Ramachandran.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Prabhu, Jai Shri Prabhupada. So my question is, we talk about a high, Shri Prabhupada has written the highest perfection of love, and we are told to love Krishna. So, and we each have our, I don't know if it's a real thing, but we experience some sort of one of these mellows. It falls in one of these categories. And it may not fall into that category of Madhurya Bhav. So my question is there something called a highest goal that we should aspire for? Although Srila Prabhupada says that everything is equal, but that's in the absolute realm. But as aspiring devotees, what should our mood be? Like, should we even consider any of these rasas to begin with?
Yeah, this is a perennial question. There's no question of should in this realm because this is it's completely unconditioned. It's spontaneous love that we're talking about. Spontaneity is not something that is shunted into a given trajectory where there's any conception of, what we should or should not do. It's just what it is. Love is there. And we may have some inkling or some inclination in our highly conditioned state. That's okay. I mean, the way I feel about this is that if you have any inclination or any inspiration for worshiping Krishna, do that. And then see what happens with it. You have to take what you have and run with it, so to speak. Because life is very short. At the same time, we should understand it's not so easy to enter into these things. We don't necessarily have any realization. We may have some shadow sentiment in the beginning. That's, of course, what everybody is brought to Krishna consciousness. There's some taste like that. But in the ultimate analysis, we're not so advanced as Prabhuji said earlier, Amritananda Prabhuji. We're just toddlers at best in the realm of, we're like in the wading pool of the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. It's an ocean, very vast and very deep. And we're supposed to go deep into that ocean, but right now we're just learning how to swim. So, yeah, we have to appreciate our limitations. And at the same time, we should appreciate our inclinations. There's no harm in that, I think. This is why we need a spiritual master. A bona fide spiritual master can direct us properly because he's realized. Tattvadarshi, as Krishna says in chapter 4. And he has enough empathy that he can understand where are we coming from and can encourage things that are good. He will discourage things that are not good. All roads lead to the spiritual master in entry-level bhakti. Yasya prasadam bhagavat prasada. We need his divine grace. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yes, Prabhuji. So is it, my question is, also I didn't mention it, but to begin with, as you mentioned, we're toddlers and we're nowhere near that. So we cannot aspire to be Mother Yashoda or Radharani, but can we aspire to be servants of Mother Yashoda who has love for Krishna, or Radharani who has love for Krishna? Is
Very
that
good
even
question.
possible?
Yeah, we're talking about Raganuga Bhakti, Raga Bhakti. Practically, Rag Bhakti means Raganuga Bhakti. And Raganuga means you find somebody who has that Rag Bhakti and you follow that person. Radharani you mentioned, Mother Yashoda you mentioned, and there are others in the spiritual world, Krishna's Nitya Parishads, his eternal associates. These are called Ragatmika Bhaktas. And these Sakhis and the Manjaris, which we mentioned in connection with Parakya Bhava, they're also Ragatmika devotees. They're extensions of Srimati Radharani's own potency, in part and parcel form, we might say. So we can follow those persons, and we definitely should follow those persons. Rupa Goswami says that's the essence of all advice. If we read Upadeshamrita, we'll see. Tad anuragi jananugami. You have to be the follower of such persons. And Upadesha sadam. This is the essence of all of advice. You should spend your whole time in being absorbed in this and trying to enter more deeply into this. But it has to be under the guidance and supervision of a bona fide spiritual master. Otherwise, we can end up in Loy Bajar, we can end up in Radha Kund, and we see all kinds of, my one of our devotees in Vrindavan, he says, we see people who have the T-shirt, "I lost my heart in Vrindavan."
Yeah.
He said we should print up one that says, "I lost my brains in Vrindavan." Because people can get awfully confused and misled, in fact, without a bona fide guru to keep them in line. So that's what we need.
Thank you.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I have a question. Niru Mataji and Ananda Krishna Prabhu. I have a question.
Okay, another question. This is a live question. Niru, have a
Prabhuji,
question?
Dandavat Pranam.
Yeah. Yes.
My humble obeisance to you. I am a neophyte devotee, and I was just curious why the God is omnipotent, omnipresence, omniscience. Why don't God wants to feel a bhav of Radharani? Because he knows it. He already knows about it. He's omnipresent, omnipotent. So why does he wants to feel as a devotee in a Mahaprabhu's, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to feel?
Good question. Sometimes very intelligent people, very responsible people, even very respected people in this world, they get in a car crash because they're driving under the influence of some form of intoxication. So we can ask, why do they do such things? The answer is that they're intoxicated. So I hate to say, in a similar way, God is intoxicated. There is an intoxication that he takes. That intoxication is called Hladini Shakti or Yoga Maya. He's drunk on the power of Yoga Maya and he doesn't know what he's doing. That's why he has lost his awareness, even of his own position, what to speak of Srimati Radharani's position. This is his eternal potency. It's not something extrinsic. That's where the comparison is not apt. It's not an external interference into his life. Rather, it is something intrinsic within him, this tendency to become intoxicated by his own love. So that's his position with respect to Srimati Radharani. He can't understand this. There's a Braj bhajan by the Braj poet Surdas. He says, even this person who is worshipped by Lord Brahma, by Lord Shiva, Ganesh, Indra, all the demigods and sages, and even he's creating billions upon trillions of infinite universes within one cosmic manifestation. And this is going on since time immemorial. Bhuva bhuva praliyate. Even this great primeval personality of Godhead, he cannot manage to get over the doorstep of his own house. Balaram makes fun of him because he can't do it when he's in his baby form. Bal Gopal. Dehli, the word is used in the old houses, especially if you're from Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, they have this on the floor. No, it's always yellow, little red lines on it. You've seen it. So this is called Dehli, at least in Braj. And, Krishna has to cross over that thing in order to get in his house or out of his house, and he can't do it. Why is that? He's the one who creates infinite universes, what to speak of houses within them. But he can't get over the thing. Sometimes his friends will conquer him and make him carry them on his back as a punishment. That you lost a game fair and square, you got to carry us now. His friends will say this. How is it possible? He is the omnipotent supreme personality of Godhead. It's possible only because he's voluntarily subjecting himself to the intoxication of that love. He loves that. He's enjoying so much ananda within that. And he gets so deeply absorbed that he can't even remember his godhood. Just like when, for example, in Ram Lila, Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, we see astonishing verses are there written by Valmiki Muni that Ramchandra, when he's bereft of Sita Devi, Lord Ramchandra is wandering through the forest like a madman calling the name of his wife, just like an ordinary
Yes.
You see, how is it possible? He's a Parameshwar, he's omniscient, Sarvagnya. How is it possible he doesn't know where Sita is? It is only a function of Yoga Maya, and that Yoga Maya functions only to accentuate the rasa that he experiences in his loving exchanges with his devotees. Now, when we're swallowed up by the Timingila fish of Mayavad philosophy, we cannot appreciate this. We just can't accommodate it. Mayavadis and mundane scholars and scientists, they kind of all have the same bent emotionally, that they really can't appreciate this. They have to have something that's objective, and it's not always like that. People are not always rational, even what to speak of God. God has feelings. He wants love. He dives into that ocean. Ananda kunde namajjantam. And he drowns his own devotees in that ocean as well. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's why we have to become like aquatics, the Prabhupada says. Otherwise, we'll drown. The fish are there. You cannot drown a fish. So we have to be deep water fish. We have to dive and surface in the ecstasy of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And even God is doing that. He himself gets lost in it. But it's only for love, only love. This love is the most attractive thing to anyone. I'm sorry. I don't care how objective you are, how scientifically advanced, how much Sanskrit you know, how much Brahman realization you have. I don't care. At the end of the day, you want love, period. So why is God any different? He is a supreme person, so he should be more loving than us. And he is. What kind of love is it that he's chasing us down life after life after life? Even we're denying him, we're exploiting his resources, we're denying his authority, we're trying to evade his devotees. Sometimes we're even blaspheming all the above. Fir bhi, he's facilitating us at every step. He makes sure we have 2 or 3 meals a day and a nice, comfortable place to stay in most cases. It's amazing. You cannot find love like that. And even then, he doesn't leave us alone. He's Anuvadhavat, Bhagavatam says. Tyaktva suduscharya saretsidharajya lakshmim dharmishta arya vachasa yad agararanyam mayam mrigam dayitayepsitam anuvadhavat vande mahapurushate charanarvindam. This Mahaprabhu is chasing us down. Even we're trying to run away from him, he's still chasing after us. That's love. And no matter how intoxicated he is, he doesn't give up that love. Never. So this is the thing that we have such contamination from all kinds of impersonal and knowledge-based and karma and vikarma-based ideologies. We have to appreciate through some experience, which happens when we interact with pure devotees, that there's such a thing as love, and that we can drown in that ocean of love, sea of love. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Last question live.
Last question, live question.
Hare Krishna, Woody.
Okay.
Please answer mine.
Namaste.
Prabhuji, is it okay to aspire to be with my Guru Maharaj life after life and be part of the experiences that he has in experiencing the Lordships?
Okay. Is it bona fide to aspire to be with one's spiritual master and to follow in his experience life after life after life? Of course. This is our goal. Janme Janme Prabhushe. That person who has given me eyesight, how can I do otherwise? I have to follow him. But of course, it should not be with the intention of trying to take advantage or trying to exploit in any gross or subtle way. It has to be on the basis of service. Janme Janme Prabhu se, matlab ki main das hi hoon. So, yeah, but this is the ideal of pure devotional service. We have to serve the devotee, and not the devotee. We have to serve the devotees of the devotees of the devotees of the devotees of the devotee. And life after life, because we see, practically speaking, that those who are the more removed from Krishna in the chain of succession and in the chain of service, they actually are the closer to Krishna. Sometimes those who are very close to the spiritual master also, the inner circle, it would seem, but sometimes they go away. Even in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Lila, he gave that example. Kala Krishnadas, when they went to Kerala, mind you, nothing against Malayali people, but he got taken away by the women. And, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we lost Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's association, but the point is that the example is there for us to learn from, we hope. That, people who try to just get near to the spiritual master and who think that they're very close, it's not necessarily so. The one who is close to the spiritual master is the one who has really imbibed his mood and the one who has really surrendered his life. In fact, in selfless service, this is a necessity. Selfless service. No gyan, no interest in gyan, no interest in karma, just surrender. And that usually manifests itself, as we said earlier, obedience, discipline, surrender, sacrifice. These are the things. So that's very good if we have that attitude. Gopi bhartu parakamalayur dasa dasa anudasa. Or yes, I was just going to quote Bhrityasya Bhritya iti mam smara. Bhrityasya Bhritya, what is it?
Yeah.
What is the beginning of it? Mat janmala phalamadam madhukaita bhare. Esha eva. Tad Bhritya Bhritya paricharaka Bhritya Bhritya Bhrityasya Bhritya iti mam smara. Lokanatha, yes. So Bhritya 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 Bhritya. 7 times. Okay, so no other questions. It's 8:11 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you all very much for coming. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Mukunda Prabhu. Thank you so much for enlivening us. So please continue whenever you come. Please take this. This will be so beautiful, so enlivening.
This is one night only.
One night only.
I'm not supposed to be here. I actually should have been in India by now, but the plane had a malfunction.
That's our good fortune. That's what
My good fortune. Imagine if it crashed. At least they took the time to delay the plane instead of letting it crash. That's happening lately, right? All over the world. And then they blame Boeing or whoever.
We are all fortunate that way.
Okay. All right. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you all for joining. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.